sound was made entirely with two massive synthesizers, and in this video I'm gonna show you exactly how I did it. My name is Eitan and I'm a sound designer for motion pictures. In this video I'll talk about how to create a car engine sound using nothing but synthesizers and plugin effects. No recordings. Before we dive into it, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. I slowly built up my sound from this to this. I'm gonna show you my process. I can't really explain the logic behind each and everything that I did, because most of it was done by trial and error, tweaking different parameters and trying different effects. What I can do is show you exactly what I did and explain my way of thinking, so that you can use this information in the future to create your own unique sounds. So before we jump into it, why should you even try to design sounds that can easily be found on a sound effects library? First of all, you don't. You can simply continue doing what you do and your sound design will sound good. But there's something in getting out of your comfort zone and trying to find difficult sounds to design from scratch that I find inspiring. It helps me develop my imagination and creativity, which is very needed for this kind of work to not become automatic and repetitive over time. Using the same kind of sound effects and the same kind of methods in fast-evolving industries such as gaming and media production is a vulnerability. It also forces me to dig deeper and understand all the small settings in the tools that I use, and encourages me to use new plugins that I wouldn't try otherwise. I always say that in order to design a new sound from scratch, we first need to think of the most basic characteristics of the final sound that we want to create. Let's listen to this engine recording. It starts with a low constant rumbling sound, and then, when the acceleration pedal is being pressed, I ask myself, what actually happens in the sound? So first of all, the pitch goes up, the gain increases, and we have more of the high frequencies. With these three simple guidelines, I can now start shaping my sound. I start by choosing a low key that will later simulate the rumbling sound of an engine, which is low. Then I start changing the first oscillator. I use a macro control to simulate the acceleration pedal, so every time I press the accelerator, meaning moving my macro control up, I need to make the gain, the high frequencies and the pitch increase. So let's reduce the intensity and the amp setting to the starting position, meaning the point from which my acceleration pedal will start changing the sound, and assign the macro. The yellow range around the knobs represents the total range movement of the macro. 0% on the macro means that the knob stays at its initial position, and 100% means that the knob is at the end of the yellow range. That way, I have full control of the different settings with a single macro control. I use it also to control the pitch. Let's add some noise. I chose brown noise and added a sine shaper. Finally, I used the low-pass filter too to hear these increasing high frequencies when the engine accelerates. Cool. Now let's make this sound even more interesting using the two other oscillators available. I used the dirty throat and I shaped it using the bend plus mode, which changes the waveform by stretching and squashing different parts of it. Remember that the exact settings and wave shapes that I used don't really matter, it's about experimentation. Trying a ton of different things until you get what you want. You could use other waveforms and effects to create a different car engine sound, and it'll still sound great. Alright, so I do the same thing with the PWM waveform, and add some clipping to the mixture. And finally, some feedback. I added a second massive instrument track to create a more complex and dirty sound using the same principles. I assigned 2 macros to a single fader so that they work simultaneously, and this is how they sound. It's getting better, but it's still pretty far from a reliable car engine sound. So the next step is to make this sound dirtier and more powerful. I routed these 2 instrument tracks to a new auxiliary and added some saturation, distortion, EQ, and compression. Alright, we're getting closer. But as you can hear, something's missing. I needed some noise, some dirty, trashy, nasty, and powerful noise that will be added on top of the original sound. It took me hours to find the right plugin effect to make this work, but finally I found it. The Steinberg Voice Designer. Now, how does a voice designer have anything to do with this? Well, some of its features include morphing different sounds together, like a vocoder would do, which is exactly what I need. So first I activate the robot button and increase it. This is how it would sound on a voice recording.
What does it take to make good choices for your business and customers?
And here is what it does to our car engine. Then I use the morph mode. I won't go into a deep explanation about the morph button, but basically it's just like a vocoder, where the waveform on the right, a white noise in our case, is the carrier, and the input signal from the massive instrument tracks is the modulator. So if you don't have access to this plugin, which is available only for Nuendo users, you can try using a vocoder for similar results. Let's play it again. I don't need all that bass because I use this sound as an additional layer, and I already have enough low frequencies from the original sound. So let's just use the high frequencies. Alright, so now we have 2 massive instruments routed to an auxiliary or group track with some saturation, distortion, EQ, and compression. The auxiliary sends a parallel signal to another auxiliary or FX track where the voice designer is activated and they both play together. Here is the final result. And I can also shift gears. Alright guys, so I hope you like this new tutorial that I wanted to release for a very long time. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe.